Hi. It's that time of year. Bikes are coming out of the garage, like my little here 600cc Yamaha. First time it's been out for a little while and you have the good weather, you look at the sunshine and you say, right, I'm going for a spin. And you thumb that starter and nothing happens. Or something happens but it's not what you're expecting. The damn thing doesn't start. So, what do? You take it back to the shop? No. Go dig in yourself, okay? If you believe that it takes a mechanic to do all of this, you're deluding yourself. Modern bikes, diagnosis, all that kind of stuff will tell you exactly what's wrong with it. But the older bikes, the ones that people can actually afford, guys who are buying their first bike, girls as well, who want to be able to go and diagnose, troubleshoot, do a little bit of digging and understand a little bit more about their bike. Those are the guys that this video is aimed at, okay? It's not aimed at people looking for a specific problem on a specific bike. It's more generic in nature than that. Troubleshooting is not always about finding exactly what's wrong. It's about elimination of things step by step. So you take it one step at a time, and you determine what the problem is. If the problem's not there, you move on, you find it somewhere else, okay? Once you get to the problem, you can either fix it yourself or you can't. Simple as, okay? Don't try to do things that you don't have the expertise or the tools to do. You might make it worse, or you might hurt yourself. So I am not a mechanic. I'm not trained as a mechanic. I never was. I do a completely different job. I do have a mechanical mindset. My father was an engineer. He showed me how to work on bikes from a very young age. So I've been spending the last 30 odd years, 34, 35 years of my life working on motorcycles, various levels, taking various things apart, putting them back together, breaking things, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes and moving on. So, what can you do if, like many people, they take it out of the garage at the start of the season, they determine either the bike won't start, and they put in the battery, they check the battery might not be working properly, they put in a new battery or they charge the battery and they start the bike again. And the bike runs for a while and then it stops running. Okay. They start it, maybe it runs for a few seconds and dies again. They charge the battery and they go through the same cycle again. So, what is causing the issue? Well, let's go through a few little tips, tricks, how the systems work, and that will give you a bit more insight on what you can actually troubleshoot. So, a very quick overview of the electrical system on a motorcycle. Hiding in here behind this cover is a little generator. On a car, people call them alternators. Bikes don't have alternators. They have what is called a stator plate, which is a little electrical plate with some windings inside this cover. And outside of that, they have a flywheel. And the flywheel has magnets in it. And if we know from basic schooling, you pass a magnet through or near a coil of wire, it will induce a current in that coil of wire. And that's what's happening in there. As the engine rotates, it passes all of the magnets, and the magnets generate, or the magnets pass the coils, and the coils generate electricity, which eventually is sent via a system of clever wires back up to the back of the bike on my bike here, okay? Which provides the source of power, electrical power, on your motorcycle. You do need, of course, power to run your motorcycle, okay? For things like spark plugs, for things like your lights, for your indicators, for your signals, all that stuff takes electrical power. The battery is just a storage system for that power. In most motorcycles, the battery lives underneath the seat or in the back of the bike somewhere. It can occasionally be underneath the tank. This, being a cafe racer, has been relocated, so that battery is way too big. It's only there for testing purposes. And it's hiding there just while I sort out some other issues I was having today. You have a starter motor in here. That's the starter motor there for turning over the engine, which takes its primary voltage, primary current, from the battery. So if the battery is not strong enough, the engine will not turn fast enough, and therefore it won't generate enough pressure, compression in the engine, enough suction to suck in the fuel for the carburetors, etc. Carburetors are all hiding up in there. And the bike will not start. So you're going to have to start with a good battery. How do you know it's a good battery? Well, you can check the voltage very simply. In order to check the voltage, And to do a lot of electrical work on motorcycles, you're going to need one of these. This is a multimeter. You can go to most hardware stores, pick up one of these. They're relatively cheap. They have a number of different settings for different functions, which is why it's called a multimeter. The one we want is voltage, which is in DC voltage on the black side here. You want to set the numbers in around the 20 mark so that it registers between 0 and 20 volts on the screen. Okay, turn it on. It's going to be all backwards there. If I stick this in my mouth, it's going to show you my voltage. Pretty low. But I am generating electrical current at the moment, okay? If I stick it in my mouth with resistance, it shows my resistance. Don't worry, you can't get an electrical shock off these that's of any real meaning to you. You can test 9 volts on this one. There's a 9 volt test, and there's a 1.5 volt test as well, which allows, there's a battery inside here which allows you to check certain circuits as well. But what we're interested in today is voltage. So DC voltage, which is the little V with the dots and dashes, as opposed to the V with the wavy bit underneath, which is AC voltage, okay? You don't want to check AC voltage on the battery because the battery doesn't generate AC, alternating current. It's a fixed voltage, generates direct current, okay? So, set, and that's what we're going to do in a moment. So here's the battery. Negative, black wire, positive, red wire. And guess what we're going to do with these two? Yes, we're going to put red wire and black wire and check the volts. And that's what we get, 12.72 volts. Between the two poles, 12.72 volts is a nice, healthy battery. Take the pole off, take the current away from it, and it drops back to 0. So, we now know that we should have enough voltage to be able to crank the bike over. This is good. This means the bike will probably start. And in my case, indeed, it will start. I can prove this to you. Watch. Turn the bike on. Get the various lights. Make sure the kill switch is in the right place. Do what you need to do with the clutch. In this bike, you don't need to pull the clutch. Start the motorcycle. Motorcycle starts absolutely fine. Many people will now run their bike for, I don't know, an hour, a half a day, and they find suddenly bike decides, stop. Oh dear, it was giving some issues. It was showing maybe flickering lights on the dash. Maybe the headlight was not solid all the time. Maybe the headlight was dim. Maybe issues like your indicators or your signals not working properly. Maybe your horn stopped working. Maybe lots of little gremlins started to appear. All of these things are leading you to believe, or leading from a battery that's voltage is starting to drop, okay? And eventually, when the battery voltage drops too far, the system, using the battery, because basically the battery powers this baby here, which is the CDI. Okay, in this bike it's a CDI, and a lot of bikes it's an ECU, an electronic control unit. This is what runs your bike. It does the timing for the engine, advances and retards the spark in my case. On more modern bikes it changes the ignition sequence for the injectors, all that kind of stuff as well. Okay, if it doesn't have enough voltage, it will not run and your bike will stop. Other things that will not run properly, your fuel pump will not run properly if the voltage drops too far, in which case your fuel pressure might not be sufficient, in which case your bike will not run properly or will stop. Okay, so what would cause the battery voltage to drop like this? Well, you have a couple of possibilities. One could be the stator, or more likely living in underneath here. Can't quite see there properly, but there is a little box in there which is called a regulator rectifier. Okay, in my bike it lives underneath the seat there in a very bad place because it's right in the weather and all the rain and all the rest. You can see from the fins on the regulator rectifier that this thing gets hot. Usually fins are an indication that it needs to increase the surface area so that it will cool down. You don't want to put a regulator rectifier somewhere in a hot place, otherwise it's going to cause all sorts of nastiness to occur. So in this case, regulator rectifier, plenty of fins, is a brand new one which I've just fitted because I was having issues. And the issue that I was having was exactly what I indicated before. Battery voltage was dropping and the bike was stopping. Now I thought that the lithium ion battery that I had fitted was the problem, because when I checked the voltage from the regulator rectifier, I was getting good voltage, and I'll show you how to do that now in a moment. So regulator rectifiers come in lots and lots of different qualities. Don't buy a cheap one, because if you cheap out, you can fry your battery. Later, what a regulator does basically is it stabilizes the voltage from the stator generator, which could be producing anything up to 40, 50, 60 volts at times. You don't want 40, 50, 60 volts on your bike. You don't want anything near that going into the battery. You'll boil the battery. So the regulator does that. But equally, this is generating AC power, and a battery will not charge with AC power. The battery will only charge with DC. So when you have to rectify that AC power to DC power, that's what this box does. And it regulates and puts out a constant voltage to charge the battery. And then the battery is used as the primary source to run the rest of the bike. This is why it will not run without a battery. Now some bikes will run without a battery, dirt bikes, stuff like that, because they have an AC regulator, okay, and that produces some ability to run lights and things like that as well. But we don't have that, we have DC. So what was happening with my bike was the battery was getting way too much voltage. So I checked the voltage across the battery. It was 12.6, 13 volts in fact on a lithium ion, and the 13 volts was more than enough to start the bike. When I tested with the engine running, as I did before, I was getting 14 volts at idle, which is a good indication. It's telling me that the battery is actually charging. I changed the battery because I assumed the battery had failed, put a new battery into it, ran the bike, it ran for a day, and then it shut down again. And the battery was wrecked, it won't take a charge anymore. Why? Because I'm a dumbass. I should have tested the voltage using the multimeter at least 4,000 RPM. So let me just hook up the cables here again. I'll hook up the sensors here again and get it to work without causing myself some issues. So getting 12.37 volts with the engine. Yeah, the engine's still on. So I'm going to actually start the bike now. Make sure the cables are, make sure the sensors are all set up again. Remember, we were getting 12.3 volts. And we are still getting. Now we're getting 12.44, 12.38, 12.44. See it varying a little bit. Just going to blip the engine. You can see it's increased 12.6. So the battery is taking a little bit of a charge at the moment. Not a huge amount, but a little bit. This would be better if I could get the damn thing to stay in place. There we go. If I just increase the volts or increase the revs very slowly. I'm not getting a very good contact on the battery. Improve that a bit. There we go. 12.93.
doing its job and regulating the voltage to the battery. The battery is taking a charge because the voltage is higher than the static voltage of the battery. This is good. As long as it doesn't raise, as long as it doesn't get too high, then the system is regulating itself properly. My problem previously was that the voltage was going to 18, 19 volts. No es bueno, not good for a motorcycle battery. Certainly not good for a lithium battery. Quite dangerous, in fact. So I should have checked the regulator current was correct and the regulator voltage was not correct. So, my bad. I fried a battery, cost myself like €100. So I have a new battery on the way. What's this going to do to me? Well, once the new battery is fitted, and I now have my regulator checked, my rectifier checked, I know my stator is good, I should have absolutely no problems all day long running my motorcycle quite happily to my heart's content. So you can troubleshoot a lot of this stuff yourself. Okay, you can take a few minutes just to check the voltage on the battery. When the engine's not running, you should be getting about 12.6 volts for a fully charged battery. If you're getting less than 12 volts, charge the battery because the battery is weak. If your battery has been sitting there all winter and it's not on a tender and you haven't added any current or any charge to your battery at all for the whole winter period, what can happen is you can get oxidation. So the plates inside in the battery basically oxidize, and the oxidation starts to fall to the bottom of the battery, and it creates bridges between the plates or the cell, inside the cell, and what you get is you get a cell short. That reduces the capacity of the battery. So where it says 11.8 amp hours, you lose a couple of cells, that will drop down significantly. 230 CCA is the cold cranking ampage of this battery. 230 CCA is a lot. For a 600cc bike, it means no problem, it'll crank it really, really quick. 150 is enough for this bike. So the lithium ion battery at 150 CCA will crank this bike and we'll have no problem starting it. And it will start it all day long. It will crank it for an extended period of time. However, it drops off really, really fast. And so lead batteries like this one, they don't drop off so fast. You know, your starter gets slow, and eventually it stops turning. With the lithium, it cranks fine, and then suddenly no more crank. And everything stops working. So when lithium dies, it dies quick. When a lead dies, it dies slowly. The curve is a bit more, a little bit less steep, okay? A lithium has a very vertical curve when it dies. So that's the difference between lithium and lead. Obviously, lithiums are a little bit smaller, lighter. They fit in much less space, so I have to take this one out and put in a lithium instead. If you have other problems, other issues could be inside your fuse box. So when you take out your fuse box, have a look inside. There are the fuses. These are what they call blade type fuses. If there's an issue with a particular circuit, you might see on the other side that there is an indication of which fuse does which. The numbers indicate the ampage on the fuse. So the bigger the amps, the bigger the system that it's running, the more power is going through that system. So the main system or main fuse here is the 30 amp, the big one. Smaller ones are lights, ignition, horn maybe, headlights, things like that. If something is wrong, and you take out the fuse, you would see this little U-shaped doohickey-jig. Let's see if I can get a good picture of it here. Yep, U-shape. So that U-shape there, let's see if I can get it against the black here. That U-shape there needs to be intact, okay? It is creating a bridge between the two blades. If it is not intact, if there's a break in that U, you've got a blown fuse. The fuse needs to be replaced. Easy to replace the fuses, just take one from the side, which is where the spares are, and pop in, make your circuit up again, and that fuse is now replaced. Now I blew my 30 amp earlier because I'm stupid. and I forgot to disconnect the battery while I was working on the rectifier, so I had to replace that 30 amp. Later on or tomorrow I go and get some spares, a new 10 or a new 15 and a new 30, so that I always have a spare in there just in the event that my 27-year-old motorcycle blows a fuse. What else can go wrong? Well, this is at the back here, a fuel pump relay. If your fuel pump relay goes bad, you will not have enough fuel pressure. You can usually tell on a lot of bikes when you start the bike, the fuel pump primes. You hear a whine or a click, rhythmic clicking from the fuel pump telling you that the system is running the pump to pressurize your fuel system. If it doesn't, then your bike might not start or might not continue running. You could rev the engine and it dies almost immediately, usually an indication of low fuel pressure. This baby can be faulty, in which case it needs to be replaced. Indicator relay here is a starter relay there. The big starter relay is the one that is basically going to send voltage to your starter motor. It requires quite a big contactor in there because it's sending quite a lot of voltage. So you see the big thick wires that run from the battery, they take a lot of voltage, a lot of current, and the big thick wires then run down to your starter motor, black there, and the red one, the big thick red one, and they crank the starter motor. But they need low voltage or low current to be able to open the relay, which is why, there we go, in there you've got the two little contactors for the low current voltage or low current side of the relay. So basically you apply power by pressing the start switch to the low voltage side here, or the low current side. It energizes a magnet, the magnet closes the high voltage side and then sends power to the starter motor. If your starter is not spinning, it could be the relay. So if your battery is good, you press the button, nothing happens, it could be the switch. Could be the starter switch, could be the kill switch, could be the clutch switch, clutch protection, could be a side stand issue, could be bikes in gear, could be lots of different little things. There's lots of sensors on newer bikes that stop you from doing stupid shit. And if you do stupid shit and the bike falls over, well, the sensors didn't work properly. But sometimes there are too many damn sensors. Anyway, that's enough for today, I think. Remember, you got 99 problems, but your bike ain't one.